Ahoy, hoy, friends. Welcome to the Salon Trek. It is a new day, a new week. We are 4 weeks out from the fifth season and sadly final season of Star Trek Discovery. And so we are talking today about the first season. How is everyone doing?
Good.
I am as happy as a tardigrade in confinement.
So, not great?
I'm navigating through.
Great.
Do you need to hydrate?
Yeah, okay.
Joel is shooting at all of us, giving us a Vulcan hello. Hello, hello, friends. Thank you for joining us. Well, we're going to get into it in earnest. This will be a little different than the last couple of weeks. Rather than go episode by episode, over the next couple of weeks, we're going to talk about season full arcs, leaning into the more serialized storytelling of Star Trek Discovery and this new era of Trek it ushered in. But of course, before that, we of course must set an intention.
Yes, folks, it's time to set an intention just to get things started. And in honor, recognition, perhaps disdain for State of the Union addresses, I thought it would be fun, since we're competing for time, we're competing for airtime with the President of the United States tonight. I thought it'd be fun if we just kind of went around the room and talked about what Star Trek character would make a great president. Who would we pick to be president? It can be a current modern governing situation, or somebody you just want to be president of the UFP. And as always, I will kick us off by hopefully not stealing anyone's idea. But I would love to see Guinan as the president of the United Federation of Planets. I just think there's some wisdom there. There's some cool symbolism in terms of her essentially being a refugee to the UFP. And then moving into a position of significant authority and influence. And I just think that hat belongs behind a big desk. So with that, let's start let's start at my bottom. Krista.
I'm the bottom.
Starts already, folks. Cheers.
I don't have a single person. I would like the love child of Cisco and Saru. I would like the two of them to make a child, and then that child becomes
Sarisco.
But if I had to choose between the two, I would say Cisco. I
Awesome.
just like his everything.
I love it. Creole food for everyone. Commodore Rix.
I am gonna say I want Dr. Pulaski as the current president. I want Pulaski 2024.
Right.
I want her to just step in and have that no shits given. We're gonna get this done. Get out of my way. Just mentality right now to kind of get us back to where we need to be. I think she could cut through a lot of the bureaucratic bullshit and just be like, the bureaucracy. I don't want that bureaucracy anymore.
On account of that dadgum bureaucracy.
Yeah, I want Pulaski as U.S. president.
Everybody eat your chicken soup and shut the fuck up. I love it. Joanne?
Well, my vote would be cast for the one and only. Well, that's not true. I was about to say the one and only, but he's not. William T. Riker. He's a diplomat. He's tall. That's important to me. And, the national anthem would be jazzified. Plus, he's not afraid to just kick ass when it's warranted. Like, enough of this bullshit. We're through running from these bastards, right? Um, I think he would just keep it together. And he's hot. Hotness moving.
I'm all for a hot president who knows how to play a bone. Will.
Well, quite the pun there. I was going to say Saru. I think he would I think he'd make a great president. Krista stole it. Thanks a lot, bitch. But kidding. Oh God. The next person who popped into my mind would be Loxana, just because of the chaos it would bring. Because I just think that would be fucking hilarious. Or she's president and just turns the UFP into like a brothel or something. Like, I would live for that. But through on like a serious note, Jadzia on a jokey chaos moment.
I love it. Fearless leader, bring us home.
Yeah, I love that. It's like Trump level chaos, but good fun chaos.
That was exactly what I was going to parallel to. It's just the liberal Trump version of sexy chaos. It's
Yeah,
Loxana.
like
With wigs.
everything's chaotic, but it's also fine. It's just fine.
Yeah.
Why is there a pool of lubricant on the front lawn? President
Wow,
Loxana just wants that out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so real world, I agree with Joanne. I wrote down Riker. I think he would be an interesting president. For the Federation, I'm thinking Catherine Janeway. She has probably the most diplomatic experience of any Starfleet personnel, given her getting lost in the Delta Quadrant, which was not her fault. She got her crew back and made a shit ton of first contacts on the way. So, Catherine Janeway.
I just want to say, the second that it's like, Madam President, the Romulans are declaring war on us. Fuck them. They don't have a home planet. Like, just,
More Hepburn.
I want them destroyed once and for all.
No,
Give
we'll
them
do it.
transphasic torpedoes. Fuck them all. Yeah.
We could land the
Dr.
ship.
Borg, blow them the fuck up. Yeah.
I love that we're chaotic already. Welcome to the Salon, everyone. I love it. I love everything about it. This is my favorite part of the week. Y'all, sad day. Star Trek Discovery is coming to a close this year with its 5th and final season. I'm excited to talk about it. I love this show. It's different. It broke the mold. It's doing new fun things. It's expanding the franchise. It is because of Star Trek Discovery, we got Star Trek Picard, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and hopefully, if Paramount doesn't fall apart at the seams, Star Trek Academy and any number of other options in the future. Also hoping for a Star Trek Legacy, but also thanks to Star Trek Discovery, we have the Section 31 movie that's coming next year, and lots of fun to be had. So I'm excited to talk about it. This week we're talking about season 1, the season that launched this new golden era of Star Trek, and we've got a lot to get into. All that said, I did want to take a moment and just recognize the environment in which we find ourselves. If any of you have been on Trek Twitter since 2017, which is where all of us have met, you'll know that you can't mention Star Trek Discovery. You can't even say, I kind of like it, without some troll popping out of his trash can to say some bullshit, usually rooted in racism or sexism or some other kind of ism. That said, we're going to be critical of this show just as we were of Deep Space Nine over the last 7 weeks, just as we were of Next Generation over those 7 weeks. We were talking about it. We love Star Trek. We're critical about it as much as we talk about the things that we love. But what we're not going to do is shit on this the way that you see online in some cesspool corners of the fandom. How those people can call themselves Star Trek fans, I do not know. They've missed the point in many, many ways, but I wanted to say that up front. Star Trek Discovery is a great show. We're going to be critical about it as much as we love it, and we'll talk about the good, the bad, things we wish were different. But the hate that it gets online, it's pretty obvious where it's coming from, but I wanted to say it outright. It is often not the criticism, but the shitting on it is rooted in the sexism and the racism in the fandom, which is unfortunate. That out of the way, we also found ourselves in an interesting landscape in 2017. Star Trek had been off TV for 12 years since the end of Star Trek Enterprise. Streaming was new, so the show was kind of on TV, kind of not. It's a premium service, it's paid. It's movie quality as an expectation. It's serialized. It's grittier. The format's different. The show is very, very different. It is not the formulaic Star Trek. Deep Space Nine and Voyager, very different than what came before it, but fit a formula of what a Star Trek ensemble show is. That's different here. The show followed a science officer. It was a redemption story from the jump. So we're going to get into it. All of that said, I'll also remind folks, insane amount of behind the scenes turmoil. Why are we laughing at me? What happened? What did I miss?
You said jump.
Because you said from the jump.
Oh, Sport Drive. Yeah.
We're just here for the puns.
Unintentional pun alert. I'll add it in. But from the jump, they had a rough go of it, changing showrunners, studio interference, the full spectrum. So all of that ranting out of the way, let's get into it. Let's talk about Star Trek Discovery Season 1. So friends, Star Trek was back on TV for the first time in 12 years. What were your top thoughts on this new show, its first season, the new characters? Let's start with Will.
Okay. I think it was really exciting to have it back. I mean, we all kind of missed it. Like we had the couple of JJ movies, but it didn't feel quite right. I don't know. It just feels like Star Trek's better on TV in a longer format. This season, I think starts out strong, and I think you can tell when the direction and the leadership of the season changes because the stories become very muddled. There's a lot of things happening. It seems very unfocused. But I think as a first season of Star Trek, I think it's probably the strongest. I think coming up close, I think Strange New Worlds is probably better. To be honest, I think as a first season of a Trek show. But this at the time, this was the best. Okay, Walt. And but it does kind of shit the bed at the end. I don't like how things wrapped up. I don't like the resolution, which we'll probably talk about. I think everything wraps up a little too neatly. But as a first season, I found myself enjoying it more this time than I did initially on a week to week. I found it a little frustrating. But this one on a binge, I think it sits a little bit better. But yeah, before I ramble, but we'll talk more about it. But I thought it's good. It just, I have issues with it that are really frustrating.
All right, let's go to Joanne and then swing back around.
I'm into swinging. So I really, totally had mixed feelings when it first came on. I saw it on TV, because I think they aired like the first couple of episodes on television and then you could see the rest on streaming. So I shared a login back when that was, scandalous, with my sorority sister. And so I had to kind of piecemeal watching the episodes. And so as a result, my first time watching, I kind of didn't get it. But then when, I kind of had the chance to really just sit down and pay attention and absorb, I found it captivating. I also kind of have an affinity I discovered for Brian Fuller. I like the way he tells stories and paints images, like the first season of American Gods, those beautiful opening sessions or stories he did were so beautiful and kind of reminiscent of the short treks. Um, So I think I just like the approach to how he tells a story. But I was also kind of concerned initially because I'm like, why do they have this black woman being insubordinate and, being difficult and not respecting the chain of command? And so I was really scared that it would go to a very nasty kind of stereotypical, angry black woman kind of place. So I was excited, equal parts excited and equal parts concerned that, will they do right by this kind of story? But so the first season, initially, I was like, no, it's not for me. But then I was like, I'm in, completely in.
Matt,
You're
did you?
muted, I think. Okay, yeah. So I think anybody that's watched us knows that I am not the biggest Star Trek Discovery fan. I have tried rewatch. Okay, I want to also first point out I love that this, and to your point earlier, you're absolutely right. This opened the floodgates for Star Trek to come back. It showed that no matter what people think of a Star Trek show, Star Trek is successful. And yet again, CBS, Paramount hoard out Star Trek to start a whole new streaming service, and it worked in some ways and it didn't work, and obviously that has its own thing. I have come to like Star Trek Discovery in the later seasons. I actually really like once they jumped forward in the future. I think it makes the whole aspect of the show make more sense. That more gritty, you don't know what's going to happen. Like, this is an unknown, fits better in an era that is so far removed from anything we know. Um, that being said, I really still struggle watching the first two seasons. In fact, like, I've tried restarting it several times and I just can't. I can't get past that for even just the first episode where it's Burnham and Saru that are just being awful to each other on the bridge of a starship when they're supposed to be the like commanding officers under Giorgio. Like, it I get what they were going for. I don't think that was the right thing for a Star Trek show that was then going to put these people in a good light. I just think, between that and some of the things that we find out later that were happening behind the scenes and things like it just I will always respect Star Trek Discovery for what it is. And I'm happy it's there. And the representation I think is fantastic. No questions. There's not even yes. All of what we're seeing in Star Trek Discovery should have happened in Voyager. We should have had that back then because that's what Star Trek should have been. That should have been ahead of the curve that much. I do have problems with how it's shown. Joanne, to your point, like, I do think if you're going to show a black female role, like lead, you can show her flawed, but we don't need to go into the first mutineer. I don't think that is something that we needed to break ground with. I don't think we needed to pile everything on to Michael Burnham. I do think that it does lose the we do this as a collective group of people. Um, and it does then kind of lead her into, well, she's the star, so everything happens because and to her. Also, we get really quickly into the kill your gays trope, which then is overcompensated to love everything despite being Starfleet officers when we get into season 4. So I do think Discovery has always kind of struggled with identity, but I also think that's the beauty of it. Like, it started it fresh. They said, let's throw this at the wall, see what sticks, and we have refined it from there. And that's what brought us Strange New Worlds. It's what brought us Lower Decks. It's what gave us a really good run for Star Trek Picard. So I have a lot of love for it for what it's done. I don't necessarily have a lot of love for it as a show. And the actors, an incredible group of people, the nicest, sweetest people you will ever meet. So
Is that me next then? Okay. I rewatched it, and it was like watching it the first time because I didn't really remember anything from the first season. So I rewatched it, and I will have to say that I loved the almost movie level visuals. All of that was thoroughly enchanting. I was down for all of that. I liked that Doug Jones is like 9 feet tall, and they doubled down and put him in some funky stilettos and let him just walk the walk. If that man could just come to my house and show me how to walk every day, I would be happy. I think that sometimes it veers a little too much into the drama. I don't necessarily feel like the love affair between Ash and Burnham was earned. It came on very suddenly to me. And so it didn't seem earned. And I think that the understory or the backstory with Ash was sufficient. I don't think you necessarily needed to pile on something else on top of that. But overall, you know, I'm not aware of any of the back stories. I'm not aware of any of the politicking and all of that goes on. So I'm just, you know, your basic Joe just sitting there watching it. And for me, it was very entertaining. There were parts that were annoying, and we'll get into it, but overall, not a waste of time. It was entertaining, and you know, it has to progress to somewhere. And I think with what Matt and Joanne are saying about the lead character, I think it's not so much, and I could be speaking entirely out of school here and Karen in the whole thing, but I think the step that they made that was the wrong step was the physical assault of a captain. That took it to a level that it was like, wait a minute, what are we doing here? This does not normally happen, and it's jarring. And you're just kind of like, hold on a second. And I think that that took it to a level where it became easily problematic. And I didn't necessarily appreciate that. I also don't appreciate the removal of one partner in a loving couple. And while the scene itself was very dramatic, and I completely didn't expect it, and I was shocked, that shock value was not worth the absence of that character. The shock value was not worth the loss of that storyline and that relationship. And I would have preferred they doubled down on that relationship versus the relationship with Ash and Burnham. I was much more interested in the other relationship. That said, the info dump on Klingons, on mushrooms, on like all of that stuff. I mean, so interesting, so uncharacteristic of all of the things that preceded it. I will say that I'm confused if this is happening in the time frame where it sort of proceeds or sort of goes along maybe with Strange New Worlds. Why is it this mycelial, you know, black alert thing is not on all of the ships? Like I'm that might have been helpful on the later ships. I'm not really
Season 2.
I'm sorry?
That happens in season 2.
Okay. But I mean, the guest star turns are awesome. And I know we haven't gotten to it, but James Frain as Sarek, that actor plays understated menacing so expertly. It's sublime. And it was just the right amount He's just the right amount of, you really don't know what he's going to do. I didn't really understand why Amanda is, well, Perrin in TNG was dressed in really fabulous jewelry, is what I remember. It seems like Amanda in this series is dressed in like, you know, the top seasonal line from Disney Princess. I don't really understand. She's always got a tiara. It's like, why are you? I don't get it. But whatever. I mean, I just kept thinking Snow White, Snow White. I don't understand the thing. But I mean, we got an Orient, you know, outpost with pole dancers, and you know, and people are getting high from volcano ash. I mean, all of it was so fun. And I really believe as a viewer, you can choose to enjoy it or not. You can choose to, you know, be a dick and just, no offense, Matt, but you can choose to not enjoy it if you want. Or you can look at it like, okay, this is new. And I think for the more toxic of the people out there, Matt, I do not believe you are one of those. But for the more toxic, it really just says more about them than it does any deficiency in the show. And perhaps it's something you need to work on. I think there were bookends that worked. I think that the themes were interesting. I loved that there were characters that were three-dimensional, duplicity, walking. There was, you know, I had no idea that the actor playing Ash was also the actor playing Vok. I had no idea until I paused it and saw the thing on my screen. I was like, that's just, I mean, I never would have put the two together. So, I mean, I really liked it. I've bumped into season 2 and I'm kind of like, okay. But season 1, I like it. I've got some problems, but overall, it was worth my time. And my time's, it's not that precious. So
Everyone's time is precious. Time is a precious resource, and for that reason, I'm going to turn it over to Trev. I'm sorry. Too easy. Sorry.
So I don't know. I don't have mixed feelings about Discovery. I just don't know why I enjoyed it so much. I think there was something. I have a hard time articulating why I'm so fond of it. I do vividly remember. I mean, as it was announced and then eventually premiered, I was still living in San Diego at the time, so I remember how excited I was during Comic-Con that year to like run down to, I don't remember which bar they turned into a Star Trek exhibit, but basically they had all of the uniforms there behind glass, and you could see those without even using your Comic-Con ticket. You could just, anybody could just walk in and see them, and there was just a lot of um, take note, Paramount Plus, some clever marketing that was done around the premiere of this particular show that seems to have vanished in all of their other attempts. So I was completely drawn into the excitement of the show premiering to begin with. So once it premiered, I think I just was loving not only that it was new, that it was different, that it was beautiful to look at, but also I think one of the qualities about the show that has drawn me in and kept me there for so long is that it's brave. It's not afraid to fail. And in certain ways, and we've just sort of touched on a lot of them, in certain ways it does let down in many aspects, and in others it swings for the fences and hits a home run. And I can't believe I just made a sports ball reference, but there it is. Must be a trailing edge of season 7 of DS9. But I every actor is fantastic. I think the casting's brilliant. Sonequa, I was a big fan of her and her character in The Walking Dead. So I was super jazzed about, when, of course, once they announced that the show was coming out and it was starring her, we are like, okay, countdown until Sasha's death on The Walking Dead, because we knew they were going to exit the character. But yeah, are there story problems? Absolutely. Did I love the fact that I've never watched a soap opera, so I don't know, but Star Trek decided to do a soap opera, and I'm like, cool, like let's see what happens. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I am one of the weirdos that I'm a Discovery fan, but I tend to like the seasons in sort of ascending order. One seems to be the one that I'm drawn to the most, and then I sort of like them less as they progress. I'm hoping that changes a little bit with season 5, and 4 and 3 are kind of debatable for me. I go back and forth. Um, Representation, obviously, the Kill Your Gaze piece was disruptive and disturbing and hard to watch, but I was watching it when After Trek came on immediately after and was like, just kidding, he's coming back, which was also jarring and weird and an odd choice. Like, don't do it if you're not going to commit to it. Like, let it be a surprise next season. But I get it. In terms of the representation, I've been a Star Trek fan since I was 7 years old, which puts it in the early '80s. I'm not telling you the exact year, but waiting that long to see myself represented in Star Trek was just sort of a commitment that I didn't think I had made until I was in the process of realizing that I was finally seeing myself. It's a little creepy in that I am a pale gay nerd who sometimes unapologetically rubs people the wrong way, who is married to a kind, loving, smart, ridiculously hot man from Puerto Rico who works in the medical field. So like the representation's a little too spot on. But it made me think that Paramount was maybe bugging my house. But all in all, thoroughly enjoyed it. Like I said, it's one of my favorites. I won't keep talking about why now in this segment. I'll fill it in and be the counterpoint to Matt's hate of the. No, I'm kidding. No, I'll jump in as appropriate moving forward. But I thoroughly enjoyed the season and am a fan of the show.
Listen here,
Yeah.
Janeway. Do I need to keep pulling your ship aside and playing waltzes over the internet? It's counterpoint.
No,
It's
I
a
Counterpoint reference.
I understood the reference. It was just rough.
It's for the
You
puns.
you
The
got
fun
there,
faces.
but it was rough. No, nothing. Okay.
I was gonna make a joke about Matt liking it rough. But it's moved on.
I
Let's
was
jump
also
to the
gonna
next
say,
topic.
Your hot Puerto Rican is also a lot nicer in person than the other one.
I'm having a 30 Rock moment, Matt. I don't think you can call him that. I loved this first season. See yourself out. Problematic gay alert, a different kind. I loved this first season. I remember at the time really enjoying it, but as I've been rewatching it this last week, I liked it even more. I agree with the points that everybody is making. There's some rough execution in a few places. I found on this rewatch really enjoying the Saru Michael back and forth brother sister more than I did before. I see your face, Matt. We can agree to disagree. I agree that I thought it was jarring at first, but on rewatch it was less so. I thought in that third episode when he offers her a blueberry is a really lovely moment. It was very brotherly, sisterly. That I thought we'll talk about it next week. I'm sure. Like they went they swung heavy in the other direction in the next season. I think that's happening a lot with Discovery. Is they're making bigger swings based on feedback, and I think I don't know, but I would imagine Paramount and CBS executives are paying way too much attention to Twitter. Because woof, are they like? It makes me think about Parks and Recreation. One of their best seasons was written and then shot without any of it being seen, and it was they credited that because the writers weren't hearing about nonsense from people outside of that while it was airing. I think these shows, especially season-long shows, would benefit from that. I'm not shitting on the writers. I love Discovery, but the good. I love Michelle Yeoh. She was famous, but she wasn't as famous. She was an Oscar winner, Michelle Yeoh, back in 2017. And so I was really excited. I did not think it was going to be what they ended up doing, but as soon as I saw and special guest star Michelle Yeoh, I got so bummed in that first episode. I was like, oh, they're gonna kill her. They're gonna kill her. Such a bummer. But I loved the pilot. I wish we saw more of the Shinjo crew. We've talked about this before. It would have been like this wasn't the story that they were telling. I fully know that, but it would have been interesting to have the first season be all on the Shinjo leading up to Michael's mistake and her betrayal. I think that would have done the character a little bit of a better service. But was it a mistake? That's a good point. Will and I were talking about this the other day. The one thing that I love about Discovery is, like all good Trek, it poses questions, some with very obvious answers. No, we should not blow up Kronos. Others not as obvious. Like, had they fired first, would that have worked in this situation? Michael thought so, but we don't know that to be true. I think that's an interesting debate, and I take umbrage with the definition of mutineer. She did not lead others to mutiny. She just disobeyed orders and assaulted her captain. It's different. We've seen disobeying orders from other people, and they haven't been called mutiny. Anyway, it was semantics, but I love the show. It's rough in some places. They make some interesting choices. I like when Trek pushes the envelope and does things differently, whether it does it successfully or not. I mean, like Move Along Home was not a swing and a hit from Star Trek Deep Space Nine, right? But like it was a different kind of first contact. I like it when Star Trek does different things. So those are our top thoughts on the first season. We've been talking about the serialized nature of the show, but it also does have very distinct arcs within episodes. I'm curious if folks had a favorite episode that they would want to highlight. Matt, you've been making some faces, so I feel like you have something to say.
I was just mainly doing it out of comedic effect. I'm going to be completely honest. I have to pull up the Disco season 1. Come back to me. I have to even.
Right.
I can't even remember the episodes, honestly.
I can kick this one off because this first season they got 15 episodes. It was gonna be 13 because 13 was the magical number at that point. I think with seasons, particularly on streaming as it was coming of age. They got 2 additional because they had more story to tell and they stretched budget in some ways. Like, again, the behind the scenes nonsense. They lost a showrunner. The new showrunners ended up being dicks and get dumped in the second season, luckily. So lots of a rough go of it. CBS, Paramount, everybody's dipping their fingers in this new version of Trek. But that said, we got a lot of really lovely, distinct episodes. Like I said, I did really enjoy the pilot. It was very different than what we've seen before. I loved the different ships. I loved the Shinjo. I wish we saw more of it. I loved the bridge on the underside of the ship. I thought that was a really cool thing to see. But my favorite episode in the first season was probably Vaulting Ambition, which is weird because I agree with the criticism of the kill your gaze trope in Discovery, and that's the episode in which it happened. And man, did they show it a lot. It happened, and then like in every episode recap and in After Trek, I'm like, ooh, that, like, stop showing it. Goodness. But lots of stuff that I loved in that. Seeing more of their relationship I thought was really lovely. And I thought their exploration of the mirror universe in Discovery was a lot of fun. Also, this episode was written by Jordan Nardino, who I think is just a lovely writer and a great presence on Twitter and Blue Sky if you don't follow him. Who else has a favorite episode? Will.
Yes, mine is the kind of the standalone of the season. It's the I hate how they name these episodes. It's like okay, Edgar Allan Poe, like chill the fuck out. Like just name it, give it like a normal name that I can remember instead of Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad, which was the second episode with Harry Mudd. I think it's the most fun episode we've had of the season. It's a really great palate cleanser from kind of the doom and gloom we got on the first chunk of this. The time loop stuff's really fun. We get to see the crew kind of do stuff that like, you know, have a party, which is like insane that you wouldn't have like the younger crewmen like hanging out and having a good time. Like they work here, but they also live here. So it's like, you know, people are gonna like use their time off wisely. But yeah, good music in the episode too. It's the one episode that like I would rewatch. Like I watched this episode season when it first came out, and then I didn't really revisit it until just until this rewatch. But I watched this episode a bunch because I think it's really fun, and I think wish it'd bring back Rainn Wilson as Harry Mudd for Strange New Worlds because I think he really nails the character. I think he had a lot of fun on it, and no, it's my favorite episode. I think it's really clever and fun. Yeah.
Joanne or Krista, did you have a favorite episode?
I did. I actually like the one right before it, Leafy, which for me was kind of true to the title. It was for um kind of the turning point, I think, for Burnham's character, where she really kind of came to terms with um, kind of her past and was able to kind of leave that behind, kind of hence the name, the forgetfulness, but also sort of the parallel with the story with Sarek and just all of how your nurture um, and how our secrets, I think I said this and had this conversation before, how our secrets really kill us and keep us bound in some terrible things as adults sometimes. So that she was able to kind of really reconcile that and, like I said, turn the page on, who she was to become was, I think, kind of exciting for me, and I loved it.
I liked the longest title, "The Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry," because I think that episode alone encapsulated the entire theme of the season, which is distinguishing between survival and principles, and how we start in the beginning. Survival was very important to Michael, and then at the end, she figures out that principles are actually a little bit more important, and you can mutiny, quote unquote, mutiny on either thing. But in that particular episode, you see Saru and having to really torture another animal to get something done that needs to get done. And that kind of, this has to be done. We have to save these people. We have to do this. This is the directive. And it really was in conflict to who he is as a person. And he's also in the background set up sort of a self-evaluation comparative to all of the known captains. How is he performing against these captains? And in the end, he says, I know what I've done. And I don't need the review because I know what I've done. And it was a very Cisco-esque scene in which he understands, the things that he had to do in order to get the job done. But you can see in his face, which is really a testament to Doug Jones, that he's with all of these prosthetics, and you can still see that he's agonizing in that moment of what he finally had to do, what he, rehydrate this thing, because we've got to get this done. And, it brings into question, we come in peace, but do you really? Are there circumstances where peace is a secondary concern and your annihilation, like blowing up the entire Klingon planet? I mean, they were prepared to do that. So I think that was kind of the underlying theme of the whole season. And for me, it was sort of encapsulated into that one episode, even though each episode prior to and following was generally an examination of each person and how they deal with that. So if I had to pick a favorite, that would be it. But I don't really have an overall favorite, but that one was the most meaningful to me. Let's put it that way.
See, now I feel bad because I honestly thought my favorite was in season 2, but it's a little on the nose. It's a little on the nose. Mine's the same as Will's. Magic to make the sanest man go mad. I mean, you get me with the time travel shtick. Like, you just, I got so stressed out about it the entire time I was watching it because I was like, no, Harry Mudd, no, someone stop him. Like, please don't. Please, that's the last person that should have any access to time travel. But like, the more I did go back and rewatch, I have rewatched that one. To Will's point, I think to me that's the most rewatchable. And there's just Stamets is, I don't like his character overall. I think that we got the bitchy gay too much, the bitchy nerdy science like douchebag too much with that. But in that episode, where he just like every time he finds Burnham, he's like, oh, again, okay. Like, it's just like it's this fun. I don't know, that episode did it for me. It did, and I do genuinely like that episode. We get to see, the whole. I mean, the sets are absolutely incredible in Star Trek Discovery. There's no question about that. It did start the whole no carpet in Star Trek, which we could blame it for that. I will not defend anyone ever saying racist, homophobic, or sexist things about the show, but I will defend someone saying that it is what killed the carpet in Star Trek. So I feel like that's a fair qualm. But I did love that episode. I think it's fun. Yeah.
I also love that it was a different kind of time travel than we had seen before.
Yes, exactly. And they did some fun stuff with it, and they tied the mycelial network into it very well
Mhm.
too. And I thought that was a nice. I have a lot of qualms with what they did with the whole spore drive thing on like 85 different levels, but I will say that was a fun little like thread through it at least.
I
Trevor,
love
did
his
you
fun
have
helmet. He had such a fun helmet. That's all I wanted to say. I love the helmet.
Which are we? And we were supposed to take away that was like an Andorian, right? Because it had
Yeah,
like the
yeah,
okay.
yeah. It was
Just
Andorian
making sure.
technology he had. Yeah.
Okay. In terms of favorites, it's actually really funny that you guys like as they were being named, they were being ticked off of my list of like because I knew I was probably going to be last, and I'm like, well, I should have more than one, and like they kept disappearing, because you all were enjoying them as well. But I think what's past as prologue is one that doesn't get mentioned a lot, and I really enjoyed just in terms of there are lots of Trek tropes in it. There's running and shooting battles that don't make sense because everybody's like 3 feet apart but still misses. Um, there's uh, there's something that I think Discovery got more right than anyone else, which is the mirror universe is supposed to be terrifying, not like cartoon villain mustache twirling like I'm the evil Spock. Like, I mean, Emperor Giorgio eats people. Like that's terrifying. So I actually really enjoyed that aspect of it. I also liked getting out of the mirror universe, so which is another reason why I like this episode. I love its not so cliffhanger. We finally get back to the prime universe and we realize that a lot of time has lapsed and the war is not going well. And that the map sort of turning into lots of Klingon symbols when it used to be UFP symbols is really cool. And the Star Trek trope of something's about to explode, we'll ride the explosion. Like that which, don't get me started on my own problematic gay jokes regarding riding being the solution to every dilemma.
It was earned.
But I'm not wrong. And so like riding the wave is just a fun little Trek trope. And so I for all of those reasons and more, I very much enjoyed that particular episode. And in true to my original promise of being the counterpoint to Commodore Rix. Carpet doesn't belong on a starship. It's a quasi-military. Like what?
No,
Like
I'm
why
sorry.
do you want
I'm
carpet?
I'm overriding that because you are vastly outvoted on every single poll that has ever been done to the Trek fandom.
In your
both
personal quarters,
problematic or
sure.
not.
In a workspace, no. Why do you have carpet where like stuff
Why
like
you're gonna
literally
slip?
literally
ship-
exploding shit flies out of the wall every other
It
day,
cleans
and you've got
itself. It cleans
carpet.
itself. It's aesthetically more pleasing. It's auditory more pleasing. You physically are going to get a better grip. You are not going to have to worry about scuff marks.
Speaking of getting a grip,
And scuff marks, no.
you need to get a grip. And scuff marks.
Ooh.
Girl, thank you for the backup. Appreciate it.
You know, I unmuted myself to say
Mhm,
Trev is right.
mhm,
Anyway, so
mhm.
yeah, take that,
Oh,
Matt.
where's my banner? Where's my banner? I earned my banner.
It's here. It just, I have so many of these. Ugh,
Joanne,
God.
this is for you then.
There's only one important one though, and that's the one. That's the one I'm bringing to STLV. And if you want to get a picture of me holding my banner,
How about if we
Uh,
want a picture of you holding your friends?
I'm gonna hold the banner for you, Matt. I'm just gonna walk around with Matt's a dumb bitch.
yeah.
Wait,
And
I
no,
just
the
need the
carpet
entire. I need to
and the
get a
carpet doesn't
red
match the
hoodie.
drapes.
I need a red hoodie that has the problematic gaze alert on the back, and then everyone just knows.
We'll see what we can do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hope to see everybody in STLV. Will be a lot of fun. Yeah, those are all good episodes. I'm thinking about like all of the, like I mentioned with Will and Matt's favorite, the new kind of time travel. Star Trek Discovery gives us a lot of newness to the Trek lore. The spore drive, new ship designs, the Klingons, the war, new aspects to the mirror universe. I'm curious if any of the new things to Trek that came through Star Trek Discovery really jump out as a favorite for folks. For me, it is the spore drive. I fully get how weird it is that it was there and then never seen again in the future. But I remember thinking at the time, like, I mean, they're going to explain this. Like, this is too big of a plot hole to be left undiscussed for sure. Like, this isn't, no offense, this isn't Into Darkness. We can't just leave massive plot holes and hope that nobody notices. The transporter doesn't work that way. It's fine. In the Kelvin universe, it does, whatever. But I love the spore drive. I love the effect, particularly in future seasons. There's one where it shows, instead of the ship moving, it shows the universe around it spinning. I kind of like, I get the vibe that like it kind of does both. It literally jumps, it kind of spins, and the universe around it spins. I love it. I think it's really cool. I love that it's based on real world science ish with the mycelial network in theory with the real Paul Stamets, who is a real mycologist that exists in the world. Super fun. And I could have used more in the discussion about why it was classified and never looked into again. Like they could have done more. Like Will and I were talking about this the other day. Like and Will loves it when headcanon is needed. Headcanon is needed with like, it was Stamets plus Discovery was classified because of the time jump. There are a few, like, I don't want to deep dive into that too much because we'll talk about it next week and afterwards. But like, why didn't Starfleet take this up again? In the 32nd century, they should have said more about like, well, when you disappeared, like we never found another tardigrade. We needed your bioscans and just a little bit more would have been helpful. But I love the spore drive. I think it's super cool, and I love when Trek does new things.
I will have to just say one small thing with the spore drive. and maybe it's for a later season now that I think about it, but I'm gonna hold on it just because I realize that's a later season and I am conflating things that maybe it's a spoiler. This aired years ago. I don't know why I'm worried about a spoiler, but like the fact that they find out that there are, you know, in the mycelial network that there are other beings, and like they could have just been like, that was an easy way to be like, oh, can't use this because it's hurting other people. Like,
Right.
period. That was it. We cannot continue this because to continue it
Mm.
would hurt another species. And to me, that's all you need.
That would have
But
been very Starfleet too.
and that like that's why it never gets brought up again.
Yeah.
But my understanding of why it was never brought up again is because the only guy that knew how to make it work wasn't there.
Yeah, but that doesn't that like kind of is like, oh well, then no other Starfleet, scientist could ever figure that out in 300 years. Like, to me, that is a little like, I mean, I get why it
Well,
would
if
be
it's
delayed, but
yeah, and if it's a classified experiment, then you're not going to
I do wish we would have
have
seen more
scientists
with,
lining up to
yeah, like the full classification or the loss of all the data. That's what I would have loved to see. Like when control comes in and all that kind of stuff,
Mm.
like something gets wiped that then wipes out the, like, oh, the mycelial network was being stored in the same place that yada, 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 something. We have to destroy this information storage unit, which will also destroy all of the research for the mycelial network. And like that way, it's not even just classified, it is it's a plot point that ties in and means no one else can ever do it, and that's why we never see it again. Like that would have been a nice like tie back. And even with 32nd century, they still can't do it because without Discovery there, they wouldn't know how.
So you didn't see the spare spore drive in Daystrom Station season 3 of Picard? I'm kidding. That didn't happen.
I swear, if that did happen though, I would have lost my shit. Actually, wait, would
It
that
w-
have, here's
it
my
would have
question,
been
would that
great
have
if there
been
was
better or
a
worse?
canister. I think it would have been great if there was a canister of mycelium in Daystrom.
Just some
That could have
spores.
been fun.
Yeah, just some spores. What about
They-
the rest of y'all? Any new aspects in the Trek universe that Discovery introduced that you find delightful or problematic? Be critical, whatever.
So for me, it was, and let me preface it by saying I'm not really a tech kind of person. Like none of that interests me. I don't really find it fascinating. And for me, one of, at least in Star Trek, I don't find it fascinating. But it really kind of took me out of the fantasy because I feel like, now mind you, I also didn't watch Enterprise, so I don't know what transpired in Enterprise. But for me, kind of the technology in the other treks was just kind of in the background and like a tool, that folks who were interested in it would kind of fixate on, but it didn't really, for the most part, didn't factor into the story. For me, kind of the screens hovering and them the spore drive and then the holographic um, communications and it was too much. Like I was overstimulated. Um, but but it was too much. It kind of took me out of the story sometimes because I was trying to figure out like what time is this? In season one, particularly, what time is this? What's going on? How does this correlate? I was, it, be- it, for me, it should have been a background player, and it was very front and center because it was so radically different. So it was kind of hard for me to focus sometimes because I'd just be looking at them swooshing things and pushing things, and I'm like, I'd miss some key plot point. Like, what did he say?
But
Like I
so
totally missed the tardigrade balling up into a little, Brillo pad or whatever. But it was, yeah,
the,
I don't know. It took me out of the fantasy.
But what's so weird, Joanne, about that is that I totally get what you mean. They do go so heavy on like, oh, it's the mycelium network and it's this and we have to do these things. But weirdly enough, at the same time, it is so insulting to actual science and actual like intelligence. It's like this sci-fi trope of technology. But then when we get to something that like it always seems like they're trying to be fun and fantasy, like sci-fi, whereas, especially when we get into the time crystals, like we never get a scientific, this is a chronoton suspension in a lattice network, or like any type of explanation. It's just these are time crystals, and like this is a hologram. Like it always just seems so weirdly put in that it takes me out of it too. And I do love the tech. Like I love it when Star Trek says like, oh, we make this pseudoscience that is still based on real science, whereas Discovery always likes to just jump into the very um shock value of technology, and it really does. It's jarring when they do it, and I think that's my biggest issue, at least.
Yeah, it was kind of
They
bananas
don't make it
hash.
natural. Yeah, it doesn't sound like scientists talking about science. It sounds like somebody that's trying to make a YouTube show talking about something, like trying to keep people engaged and everything's, which I get that maybe of the era. I just it takes me out. I don't, yeah.
I will say in hindsight, though, I did find it interesting now, kind of watching it again and having seen The Last of Us, which I didn't think I would like. I thought it was very cool to kind of like in The Last of Us, the Mushroom Network is kind of, a death bearer. But here it's kind of the key to victory and life giving. So, potato, potato, circle of life, Akuna Matata, all that. So that was interesting in hindsight, but obviously I wasn't that deep when I watched it the first time. But yeah.
I want to kind of jump on something that Krista commented on earlier, which was the Klingons, which got a lot of hate in fandom in general, but actually taking a species that is very known to Star Trek and making them look actually like aliens instead of people with things stuck on their forehead. Um, Again, brave to do with Klingons who've already had like 3 different makeup looks to them. Um, but I've always had, and maybe one day we'll have a salon just about headcanon, and hopefully Will's head won't explode. Will can just tell us all why we're wrong.
I'll be absent that day. I can't be
No,
here
just
for that. My
no,
blood pressure
no.
won't be able to take it. It'll
Join
kill
and
me.
join and tell us why we're all wrong. Somebody needs to. But my this isn't
that'll
even
be a fun day.
this isn't even really headcanon. This is just like the way that I've always watched Star Trek and any franchise. Like visually, it's going to appear different as different incarnations occur. Like the idea of we can never go back to the mid 2200s because everything has to look like 1960s cardboard with blinky lights is ridiculous. So I've always viewed it through the lens of like you're watching the captain's log, like you're watching an interpretation of what occurred. These events occurred. What it all looks like is just dependent upon different interpretations of who's telling the story.
But what
That I was wearing a blue sweatshirt. Did it have a stripe? Could you see the threads on it, or was it, did it actually have a hood, or did it not? Like what that looks like once the story is shown is dependent upon who's showing the story. Sorry, Matt, go ahead.
no, don't apologize. I just
I
want to say
interrupted your interruption. What were you saying?
the implication there is that Captain Kirk has the imagination of cardboard and blinky lights and
I
doesn't
believe
notice
it.
any other. Which
I
is
said what I
believe
said. I said what I said.
He doesn't notice anything, but suddenly the women are so beautiful, and that's why we see so many of them, because that's
It's
all he paid attention to.
it's
But
why
it's
they
a
all
good
get
headcanon.
close-ups. It's why they all get
Context is
close-ups and
king.
special lighting. Yeah.
It is a
Context is
good,
king. Yeah.
Yeah. So like but the moral of the story is that my fan theory of how I watch it and the lens through which I watch Star Trek eliminates all of that. Like I don't like it doesn't bother me. I will say that I get a little bit weird about things like holographic communication in the 2200s. Not that they wouldn't have the technology, but that they didn't implement it on ships. So why are they implementing it now? That was a little
Right.
weird.
It
And
needed
then,
a line of dialogue. It was just like
well, we
we're
got one and it
testing.
was dumb.
And it
Yeah,
was still
right.
dumb. Absolutely. We got
I
one.
Yeah.
have the. Can
We're
I just
testing
really?
this on the Shinjo. That's it. Like whatever.
Right.
All we had to do was once we got partial into the Klingon War and into just have a one-off line saying, or at the end of the Klingon War, I guess it would have been, that Starfleet intelligence realized that one of the reasons the Klingons was winning because they were intercepting our holographic communications because they were too complex to
Yeah.
encrypt. So
I
they
like
went
it.
back to a more basic, it's just audiovisual. We can easily encrypt that to the nth degree, but when you get holograms in there, it then becomes easier to crack. Therefore, it's a security measure that they didn't fully understand and implement until the Dominion War, and it took another 150 years of technology to progress to encrypt something that complex to that degree where your enemy couldn't
Or
do it. Like, that's all I
given
needed.
I like
or
it.
given that it was a war, just show the Klingons hacking it and all of a sudden also
Or yeah,
accessing force fields, and the holograms just start killing people. Wouldn't that
exactly.
be
Or
fun?
how they hacked into the yeah.
But anyway, that part I got a little hung up on. But like in terms of what things look like, I was never really bothered. I appreciated that Klingons looked like there came up when I was a kid watching Next Gen. Like Klingons kind of scared me. Like there was a little bit of scariness to them. That goes away very very quickly the longer you watch TNG. Klingons in Disco season 1 are kind of scary. And that's sort of the point. Like the idea is to frighten you a little bit and then make you wonder why you're frightened. Like, and that's like the show should make me explore why I'm reacting to something that looks so different as something that's frightening, and I should be able to kind of move through that as part of the story myself. But anyway, I liked it. Some people didn't. I loved the excessive use of their language because if they're just all talking amongst themselves, why do I always understand it? I kind of liked the transition that they would do when we realized this scene's going to be way too long if everyone just has to read the whole thing. So there would be a reason why all of a sudden people were speaking English. And I also loved that it touched on Klingon culture in a way that Star Trek Phase 2 was supposed to, which was giving us a little bit more depth that not everybody's there to just kill everyone, that there are not everyone wants to be a warrior, that there are spies, that there are whole families and houses that just do different things. And Phase 2 was going to do a little bit different than that, not quite as complicated as 24 major houses and all that fun stuff. But I liked that they were giving it so much more depth and character than just, oh, they're the mean people that cut you with knives. That there was more to them. I really appreciated. Sorry, I rambled.
No
No,
worries.
I agree with you.
Yeah, you reminded me of when you talked about being frightened of Klingons. I was thinking about the Star Trek: The Next Generation VCR game. We've talked about this before, right? Where it's the same actor who plays Galron
Galron.
steals the Enterprise D, and as you're playing, he'll randomly be like, "You, the one who is moving now, experience beige." And you have to draw a beige card, and it does something with his giant eyes. You experience beige.
The one gif of him it's from like this angle, and he's just yes on the arm of the captain's chair. Like I love Galron. Might be one of my favorite like B characters or C characters in Star Trek. That is such a good
I kind of
role.
wish it was Galron. Like, what a random thing if the Klingon Chancellor stole the Empress D.
Just randomly got it. Like, hey.
Also, spoiler alert: if you've never played it, if you lose the game, he steals the ship to go fire on Klingons to start a war. If you lose the game, the Enterprise is destroyed, but you just see him from above being like, ah! It's the cheesiest, most amazing thing ever. Bring that back to Star Trek. Let's see that.
You spoiled a game that no one has the ability to play because finding a VCR in
It's on a
2024
VCR.
It's on
is
YouTube
harder than
now.
score jumping. It's
on YouTube now. We should play it in one of the weeks after, in between shows. That would be so dumb and so fun. You experience beige.
Actually, we can't do that because that's going to be. I'm going to use that as an entire episode for our Star Trek adventure.
God.
Who wants to be Galron?
Will's the better actor of us.
No, actually,
It's true.
plot twist. Krista is going to play Gowron for that one episode only.
Gender
I'm
swapping.
gonna
I
Yes.
love that. I love that.
Krista, I need you to do the eyes the entire time, though. I need the gout. There it is. There it is. There's the Gowron
It
eyes.
hurts. Oh.
But I have to
Um,
say my headcanon for the Klingons, and I
yes.
was
Go.
totally into them, and their whole story, and that whole mythos. And I'll fight you for season 2, Matt, about the time crystals, and the Klingons. So we'll fight next week. But for me, the headcanon, I thought they did a brilliant job at kind of bridging the gap because like this is in between kind of right before the enterprise, right? So I thought they did a brilliant job of kind of saying, or they gave us a way to say, well, this is how we got the smooth headed human looking Klingons because Ash, Volk, or whatever, the matriarchs transformed him or whatever. So this explains it, and it makes sense why this is something Worf we would never talk about or we don't discuss with outsiders. So I thought that was a brilliant move, and I thought they were beautiful, and just kind of showing again just the evolution of a species and the differences. And like I said, I think I said before, I think they're also heavily African American coded or African coded. So just again seeing those nods and influences was just beautiful. Now, I did I didn't like the way they sounded. They sounded very muffled, which I think was I don't know if that was choice or the teeth or the makeup. But I loved the whole story that unfolded. And again, I'll die on this hill. Why won't they do a Game of Thrones for the Klingons? Like epic, epic. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
I love it. I do wish I would love to see on Strange New Worlds 3 different versions of Klingons, like just in the background, like show us a smooth head, show us a Discovery style, show us their version. Like, because I like what Strange New Worlds is doing as well with their version, the Goldar of the Klingons. It's a Power Rangers reference for anybody who's not old enough. I'm aging myself. Anyway, do they still exist? They still exist, right?
I'm too old for. Shut up, Matt.
There are another great aspect of Discovery season 1 is we got a lot of really lovely guest stars. We somebody talked about James Frain earlier. We talked about Rainn Wilson. My favorite was Admiral Cornwell. I freaking love Admiral Cornwell. I loved seeing and learning that she's a psychiatrist, but then she got into command and like, yeah, that makes some sense. Like you've got command training in addition to your vocation. There are interesting stories to tell with that. And Jane Brooke, just love her. I've loved her since she was in Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. Great actress, super fun, and look for that sign that says personnel. Yeah. Justice, wait. Who hasn't seen the rest of Star Trek Discovery? Is anybody watching it for the first time with
Krista,
this?
have you seen season 2?
Sort of. I don't really remember it.
Okay.
So I might as
Well,
well.
let's
be
talk about
first
guest stars. Let's talk about everybody's favorite guest star. Who has one to highlight?
I liked Cornwall. I thought she, and the thing that I liked about her was in a dire situation, she recognizes that she's such a good therapist, she's such a good psychiatrist that she recognizes Ash as having a PTSD event. And in the midst of all of this, she's trying to walk him through that. And it's kind of like, it sort of disappointed me that it turned out to be another personality superimposed on his personality. Cause it's like, can't we just let the therapist, can't we just give her that she's good at this? I know you guys don't like therapists and you fuck all the therapists up and they all suck at their job. Can we just not give this just to this one character, that she is brilliant in a completely fucked up situation and still manages to try to get through to this guy And I just I really enjoyed her, and I liked, to go back to the Klingons really quickly, I liked that there was a female in the forefront. There was a female that was really playing the Game of Thrones, playing within the houses, playing the game, playing for allegiances, much smarter than her male counterparts, if you will. And I think the women in this show are much smarter than their male counterparts. That may be an unpopular opinion, but so be it.
I have to actually weirdly kind of piggyback off that in a spin. I'm going to go ahead and say this. I'm not going to say any. I think everyone here knows that I have talked to and know some Discovery, like people that work on Discovery. I want to say my least favorite guest star, guest person, from what I've heard from various sources, fucking Lorca. Like, apparently he was one of genuinely, and this is kind of outside, and I guess we could talk about that, like behind the scenes. This sort of does both. He was like one of the worst people, like, to ever work with. And that's why we never saw him in the flashback before, because he would just take people's lines and like rewrite them and just like, no, that's not what you're saying. And like, just not great as a person. So that makes it really hard for me to watch the character now. So
Dragger.
like, it's just, and especially hearing like that this person, like, well, obviously he just thought so much of himself that he could just walk in anywhere and just like do whatever he wanted and like step over director's lines and stuff. So like that kind of takes the best one though, obviously Cornwall, best character, I would argue to say, in season 1 of Discovery. Like absolutely fantastic.
I like Cornwall, but I hate her hair. I'll say that.
She
I
always
hate the
looks
middle
wet.
part. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna be bitchy here. Stamets isn't the only bitchy in the Star in Star
I
Trek.
actually have the
I will-
longer version of that hair, so I'm not going to take
It's
that
better.
personally.
I don't like the way it sits on her hair. I don't like the way it moves. It's too shiny. It drives me nuts. Anytime she's on screen, I'm like, Mama, let's get you a clip or something. It's in her face too much. It's like, it drives me nuts.
And
like,
it's also so thin.
Sorry, I love her as a character. It's very thin, but it's like, Mama, let's do something slick back. Let's do something, or pop a wig on her. Like what the fuck? Like, it's just not. I don't mean to be like, I don't know if that's like makes me misogynist, but it's like the hair. Like, there's a point in this show where no one has good hair, and it's very frustrating to me. Like, there's a point, like Burnham's is good the first couple episodes, and then I don't
They're
know what
in
they
a
did.
war.
I don't like
I know, but
after jail. I don't like the jail hair. I like
I like that. That was good. But yeah, I think the braids were so much better
in the first couple of episodes. I thought that was fabulous on her face.
Sure. The braids are a better choice. But there's like an episode where nobody had. I can't remember what episode it was. It was like jarring to me because nobody had good hair. I was like, was the hairdresser out sick? Like, nobody's hair looked good.
Then Culber wasn't in it because Culber's hair
war.
always looks good.
Who?
Culber.
Yeah, because it's pretty short though. But
yeah,
like,
what are you gonna do? What do you mean his hair always looks? His hair doesn't move.
His hair always looks good.
Yeah. Thank you, Johnny. It just drives me nuts. Anyway, sorry. I love her as a character. I'm disappointed about the trajectory of her character, but I also boot to the hair. I'm sure that's her hair. I'm sure she's like, this is what we're doing. But like, I don't know. It just, every time I see her on screen, I just want to just move it away from her face just like a little bit, because it like cuts into her face in a way where it looks like when they shoot her head on, it looks like her head is in the middle of a doorway. It just drives me nuts. Anyway,
if we're gonna talk about hair, can we talk about the fact that Tilly in the Prime universe usually has like hair balls or a dew ball, or it's in a bun or whatever. But when we go to Killy, Captain Killy, it's this dead straight, long, it's like power hair, and it has all these angles. Like, did anybody notice that when she turned around and her hair was flattened, when she turned around, it came up into a point? It was like higher in the middle than these things nobody else notices. These
No,
are
I
the
know.
things I noticed.
It looked a little
Yeah.
like a delta to me, oddly enough.
Exactly. And I was like, I thought it was interesting that the mirror universe character, some of the power of that is in the appearance, is in the hair. And some of the sort of harmless innocence that she has is in kind of the Pippi Longstocking thing she's got going in the Prime universe. And also, I think we need to talk about some of the it's the little things that I noticed. It's the fact that she snores and that she drools, and it was the drool that got Burnham into the spore drive, got Burnham into the spore garden. Like, but they showed the drool. It's the fortune cookies for Lorca and his obsession with fate and fortune and destiny, and this belief that he actually controls these things, that he can manipulate a chessboard to do what he wants it to do, regardless of which universe he's in. It's those little teeny things that I thought were so like easily overlooked, but in looking at the season as a whole, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Because I mean, everybody's got their thing, but I was like, what's with the fucking fortune cookies? And like, this is just a weird, why the fuck would you have a bowl? First of all, they don't even taste good. They're not like a cookie you want. Like,
That's
I'm
a
going to go out and get a
preference,
bowl of fucking
Krista.
fortune cookies.
It's a
Nobody does
preference.
that. Apparently, it's not mine. So I objected. And it didn't make any sense. But then by the end of the season, I was like, this makes sense. That right there, that bowl of fortune sitting right on his desk. And the fact that he didn't like people sitting around. The fact that he stood in his ready room and nobody was allowed to sit. All of these things. And what I liked about the scope of it was that it reminded me very much of when Picard 3, the first episode, The Next Generation, the first episode aired, and everybody was like watching the credits and stopping it by the nanosecond, trying to decipher what the entire season was going to be. It's only until you get to the end of this season that you realize it was all there to begin with. When he brings Ash to Discovery and he says, we can take you someplace else or you can stay here. And he's like, oh no, this is exactly where I want to be, because he's Vok. He's not Ash. Lorca's eyes are fucked up. Well, you automatically think it's because of this thing. Those turns, those little teeny things telegraphed the entire season. And I think that sometimes we get lost in the easy criticisms and we lose those little nuances that sort of set it apart. The Klingons appearing the way they do, and when they start growing their hair again, it's like, I was like, is she wearing a wig? I was like, girl, that's bad. But it's those things that give it that movie quality. It takes it away from what you were talking about, the carpet and the blinky lights and the cardboard. It's those elements. You couldn't have a Worf looking Klingon. It would be too incongruous to,
I mean, tell that to Strange New World season 2 though, because Ambassador Peacemaker looked rough. But you're right.
I'm just saying, I liked these. I liked these Klingons. I liked that they spent some time with them. I liked that they found that the the species in general and its contribution to the franchise overall was worth a little bit of exposition. It was worth a little bit of, let's do something with this. And I would like that more than I would like a revisit of Spock or any of that. I think the Spock stuff is easy, and this stuff is a little bit harder because you don't necessarily have an audience that's going to embrace it right away. And this is this show is very, you divide into one camp or the other, and like maybe that's what it's meant to do. But
I think it does a lot of things very differently. I think you're right. There's a lot of new aspects to Trek. It's very different. But I want to circle back to something you said earlier about Tilly, because I think that's a character that's worth further discussion. I love Tilly. I think they got Tilly right in this first season. She's a cadet. She's a little silly, but then she's business when she's on that away team. She's the heart of the show. She's also the comedic relief. Like the episode that's on in the background right now is episode 15, where she gets high from the volcanic ash. She's fucking hilarious.
But she really does a disclaimer. Like I'm really high, but
just so you know,
I identified with her because this are things that I would. This is the kind of thing. I will say the one problem I had with Tilly was the episode, and it was only because of placement. When she says, "This is really fucking cool." The use of fucking in that scene, I don't have a problem with expletives, but in that scene, that was pre-Mirror Universe, and it seemed uncharacteristic at that time. It seemed kind of lazy, like we're going to try to make her sort of cool or something. And to me, at that time in the show, it would have been more appropriate for her to say, say something more word vomit. I'm so excited to be here. This is, I've been, I'm on the command track and all of that. And it seemed like the placement prior to, like, the only person that I really felt like it was legitimate, the use of the word fucking, was Amy Magnuson in Picard, where she just says the fucking unmitigated gall.
Sheer fucking hubris.
Because it was on her face.
Hang on one second, Chris. So Trevor, you came off mute. Did you have something to add?
Yeah, no, I was filling in the line.
The sheer fucking hubris.
The sheer fucking hubris, yeah.
But it was on her face before it came out of her mouth. And with Tilly, part of the charm of Tilly is that she word vomits. She just word vomits and then she apologizes for it. And it's, to me, it seemed like that was preemptive. It would have made more sense for her to say that after she came back from being Captain Killy. It didn't seem to fit, but otherwise, she's my most favorite character.
There was something else that initially didn't fit for me until like later on in the show when we got to season 2, which was not two guest stars, but another guest star. Mia Kirshner as Amanda Mia is only 10 years older than Sonequa Martin Green, which normally in television, when they do that as the mom to the that drives me crazy, because it's like, why are we afraid to show older women on television? But the fact that she and Sarek essentially adopted Michael, in one way alleviates that concern. But the other thing that's really cool is, and I don't know, I give Mia all the credit for doing it, there's an immense amount of just sort of maternal eye acting, for lack of a better expression. Like, Mia doesn't have a lot of dialogue toward Michael that is inherently maternal, but just the way that she emotes when she's around her, the way that she is both a restrained because I'm married to a Vulcan and I have to somehow hold myself back for some strange reason, which doesn't make a lot of sense in the 23rd century. But still manages to express herself. That I don't know. I didn't expect Amanda Grayson to be one of my favorite guest characters from the first season or the second season or Strange New Worlds. But she has turned into that for me, and I give all the credit to Mia. Mia was also, I don't recommend that you watch a lot of it, but by all means, YouTube Dracula the series. It was a Canadian TV show. It was a 30-minute. It came on the same time that War of the Worlds was kicked off, so it was like 88, 89. It's absolutely dreadful. It's like 3 kids that live with like their surrogate uncle who happens to live near Dracula. Like it makes no sense whatsoever, but like if you're 10 or 11, it's a hoot. And Mia plays one of the kids, and to see her acting grow as much as it has is impressive, because she was not a great child actress. But
No children are good at very, very
it's
few
true. It's true.
child actors are good actors.
But it's a if you want to see someone's first acting job who turns into a great actor, there's a fun one to start with. Also, some insight into 10 or 11-year-old Trevor and what he was obsessed with watching at the time. Not that any of you are looking for that, but if you are, there it is. Guest actors.
Well, friends, we're coming to the end of our time together for this first season, so let's wrap up with our final thoughts on the first season of Star Trek Discovery. Anybody have any final thoughts that they haven't yet shared on this first season?
I do. I didn't really touch on it, but I found that while I liked it as a watch, is just like a revisit of it. I find myself kind of getting disappointed with the lack of like we talked a little bit about bravery in the show and like what they're willing to do visually and things. I wish they would have pushed that narratively and tried to do different things with the show, like because I think like it would have been nice to get more of the Klingon subplot. Like we get to learn more about the Klingons, how this show's a little more split up. I know it's about Michael Burnham and she's a central character of this, but getting to maybe get flashbacks to the Shenzhou. So we see more of where Burnham kind of coming through this. So we get to know her a little bit better because it doesn't seem like we know her too much. They tell us things, but we don't see it happen and we don't see her interact with people. She's a very small group of people she kind of orbits. And the best character moments come from like her and Saru and her and Tilly and Walter agrees. And their kind of interactions with each other and how her dynamic changes. But it would have been nice to see more of her relationship with Giorgio because I think we see a little bit of it, but I would have liked to have seen that explored because I thought them together they had a lot of chemistry as 2 actors together. And while I think the show takes a lot of takes some strong points in terms of like visuals, I think sometimes it pulls its punches in terms of narrative where it doesn't seem coherent. I know that we're dealing with a lot of like stuff behind the scenes. We lost a showrunner that we lose Brian Fuller. I think around the 4th episode, I think is when he was told to step away from the series, where that's where his credits kind of end, and which is disappointing because I think the first 3 episodes are so strong in terms of like what we're getting in terms of the characters. Like I think it really pushes that forward, and what we're kind of getting in terms of like this reiteration of Star Trek. I just found that it would have been nice for it to be more complex in its storytelling. Like if we would get something closer to a Game of Thrones, we have a lot more story threads that maybe we can tie up or bring through different points. They make swings in areas where I don't really find that it was necessary to make a swing there. Like with the Klingons visually, while it's cool, I don't think that they needed a reboot in terms of visuals. Or thinking that everything has to be on this huge scale every time. We can't get something smaller. I don't know. I found myself as we were talking growing more distant from the show again as I thought more about it. But doesn't change my first opinion. I think it's the strongest first season we've gotten, but unfortunately that bar is ground level. So it's not very far to clear. But anyway, I don't want to go on any further, but I just wish it was braver and more complex in its storytelling and what it was willing to do. It just feels like it's telling us it's being complex, but not showing us that. And I think that's a lot of my issues with Discovery as a whole as a series, is it tells us a lot, but doesn't show us that, which frustrates me as an audience member. Anyway.
Matt, you had come off mute. Did you have something?
Well, first, Krista, did you have something you wanted to? You had your hand up, like you wanted to.
I just wanted to say that I think the visuals and the movie aspect of it is nice, bright, shiny things, and I think sometimes the writing didn't match that level. That they use the distractions to sort of cover the tell part instead of the show part. And also, I think they did a bit of a disservice to Burnham in that she very frequently is apologizing for behavior, but at the same time, you sort of, as a viewer, understand that she's going to turn around and do the same thing again, even though she's apologizing for it. And I think that undermines the character, because the writing doesn't necessarily validate why she would do it again. They do the apology accountability thing, but they don't necessarily stretch to show why these things might be validated, at least until the end. Through the beginning of let's say the first half, it's kind of like, well, she's just going to do it again, so let's just watch her do it again. And it doesn't really make sense. And I think they depend on the spectacle a lot, and that relieved a lot of the thematic expectation.
That leads into what I was going to say too, is like, on a bigger scale for me, I think the entire heart of Star Trek is saying that simultaneously no one person is the entire universe, but also we are all capable of changing it. Like, it focused too much on the fact that Michael Burnham was everything, and she wasn't just one of the people that could change things. It wasn't a collective whole coming together to solve a problem or fix something. It was everything is not just kind of, but directly influenced by Michael Burnham. And I think that was one of the things that, like, we never lose throughout Discovery that bothers me. We got more of the ensemble cast in the later seasons. We start to actually explore the other cast. They kind of realize that Star Trek isn't just about one main character. But I think that is the one thing that I wish we would have gotten farther away from. It doesn't, to Will's point, like earlier, it never needs to be a galactic scale threat just to make a difference. Like, and that's the other thing, is like, if you're so focused on galaxy ending things, then you're saying, well, nothing else really matters. It doesn't, like, the beauty of Star Trek is saying it doesn't matter if there's 600 people that are at stake. It doesn't matter if it's just our one crew member who is going through a psychotic break. We're still going to dedicate this show to showing why that matters and how we get through it. It doesn't always need to be life. So I think that is my final thought on Disco in general, is that it did so many good things right, but it was written very kind of pedestrian, and it went too big and spread itself too thin to match the visuals and the quality of other ideas in it.
Joanne, did you have final thoughts on the first season?
There's no such thing as too big. Um,
Ma'am, I am 35. I'm going to argue that.
In the arms of the angel.
Thank you, Joanne.
Thank you
Thank
very,
you.
thank you very much. Overall, like I said, I liked it, and I appreciated kind of like the reintroduction it gave to Trek um in the world. You know, I hear you, Matt. I do struggle with the Burnham shouldn't be the focus discussion because I'm like, why not? But they were being brave, they were being bold, they were trying a different formula. Um and I think the discovery was, kind of a metaphor, kind of just for her own sort of discovering her path and her way in the world, and her path kind of back to herself after, really being kind of crushed and defined by other people's, thoughts and expectations. So, um, you know, uh, like I said, the tech kind of lost me, but I think it was a brilliant sort of start to just kind of say, "Hey, Star Trek lives," and these ideas persevere and change and develop and grow, but at its core, they're still boldly going. So, I liked
I agree. I love it. I thought this was a bold new adventure that launched a lot of new Trek that we've talked about before, and we'll keep talking about because we've got a lot of fun in the next couple of weeks. But before I close us out, Trevor, your final thoughts and any tallies for the week.
Okay, and thank you. So we don't need to hear any more, and we all win. Have a good night, everyone.
So my final thoughts are I have a list of everything that Matt said wrong tonight. No. No, my criticism might start to sound like it's toward Matt, and it isn't. It's I want to preface that very seriously by saying because it's so anyway, when the show launched, it was described as being focused on one central character. I understand what Matt is saying about the writing, and that's why I'm differentiating it from what my main gripe is, which is the Trek bros who all were like, "Why is the show about one central character?" Like, because that's what it is. Like, it's it's like watching uh, John and Kate plus 8 and being like, "Why do they have 8 children?" Like, I don't know. It's because it's what the show's about. Like, so that has always frustrated me. The piece that I will say kind of encompasses everyone that has poked and prodded at that point is I agree with Matt that like Burnham shouldn't always be the solution or the necessarily the sole reason that something is occurring, and that's where I think he's going. Jumping back to what I was saying about the Trek Bros and that the other issue is that literally no one complained when an entire series and 6 movies were about 3 white guys. But make it about one black woman and suddenly everybody's in a tizzy. Again, differentiating that from Matt's concern about plot and writing, because those are very different issues. So yeah, enjoyed it. Oh, thanks. I did it again, guys. I'm gonna start tallying that one because I want to see how many times that pops up just to drive Matt crazy. Um, no, season 1, like I said, my favorite of Disco so far. I'm hoping that 5 replaces it because I'm kind of jazzed about it, and I like the idea of the 32nd century, 31st century. I just haven't liked necessarily the stories that have taken place there so far because every season does what Matt said it does, which is galactic scale stakes. Like it would be nice if one didn't, and apparently this one doesn't. So I'm very jazzed about season 5. There was one problematic gay alert, one problematic ally alert. Congratulations, Joanne. Um, that I think replaces the surrogate problematic gay alert that Krista had earned previously, but that's because the video didn't exist yet. So congrats to both of you, really, because ladies, you're both pretty. And so in terms of bonus points, 1,031 bonus points because NCC 1031. To Matt for being wrong about carpet. 1,031 bonus points to Will for being right about hair, and 1,031 points to everyone but me for having hair.
I love it. Thank you, Trevor. Thank you, baldness. Thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you to our speakers and to our audience. It heartens me to no end that all 73 of you care more about Star Trek than the state of our union. But please, dear God, vote for Joe Biden. But thank you for joining us. I know a bunch of y'all are seeing us on Twitter. You can join the chat on YouTube. We're at Salon Trek on YouTube. You can also follow the Salon on Twitter or Blue Sky, and Blue Sky, not or. Follow us everywhere at USS Salon on the socials and on YouTube at Salon Trek. We're here every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific. Next week, we're talking about Star Trek Discovery Season 2. So thank you all very much. And with that, as always, we hope everyone here lives long and prospers.